Hi everyone. So the free software I am using only allows me to record in 15-minute increments. And so I still have a little bit more to say about chapter 7. So I decided to break it up into a second lecture. So this is the lecture part 2. It will not take a full 15 minutes, but there are a few more things I want to talk about. So before you started this lecture, I'm hoping that you watched the Friends clip that had Joey and Chandler talking about when Joey's new roommate moved in, she started to feminize the apartment and then eventually started to feminize Joey. And the entire point behind this clip, so I'm hoping that you drew this from it, is that while there are distinct differences between what makes a man and what makes a woman and what makes something feminine and what makes something masculine, there is still nothing wrong with a person who identifies as a woman doing things that are considered more masculine and people who identify as men doing things that are more feminine. While this clip made light of that and made jokes and made you laugh about it, at the same time, there was really nothing wrong with it except for the fact that it was subverting the gender norms that are established by our society. And that's something I really want us to work on a little bit when we are looking at the next project, or our first project. But before we do that, I want to just do a little bit with the conclusion. So the very last thing I talked about was the last quick tip for women, which was never give a man advice. And I had to rush it a little bit because we were almost out of time. But a lot of times women, the reason why men struggle for that is because if you give them advice, a lot of times they've already thought about it and dismissed it as not working. Because if it was something that would have worked, they would have done it ahead of time. But this never give a man advice is very similar to the quick tip for men, which is men don't fix her problems. So a lot of times women just want to talk to you about what's going on. They don't want you to fix it. And if all you're constantly trying to do, men, is fix her problems, it makes women feel like you think we can't handle our problems on our own, and or that we can't trust you to come, that we can't have enough trust to come to you with our problems, but then allow us to come up with the solutions on our own. I personally, as an identified woman, process best by talking it through with somebody. And so if I'm talking through a problem I'm having with a coworker and my male counterpart is like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll talk to her," then all of a sudden it feels like they don't think I'm capable of handling the situation. However, there are times when women do go to a male counterpart to ask for help in fixing something. But when that happens, a lot of times the women will ask for that help, will ask you to fix something. So just like the other side, there are times where men will go to women to seek advice on things. But when that happens, the man will ask for it. So this goes back to that opaque rule in that we don't want to assume things. So instead of making assumptions, we need to ask questions, get clarification. So something I've gotten a lot better at doing is when I go to talk to my husband about an issue and I don't want him to fix it and I don't want his advice, I will say, "I just need to vent. I need to get this out. Will you just listen to me?" And he knows then that all he needs to do is listen to me and be supportive, that I'm not looking for him to fix anything. And men, I think if you could do the same thing and all women were to do the same thing, where when somebody comes up to me with a problem, before they start on their story or what's going on, I'll ask them, "What are you looking for from me? Are you looking for advice? Are you looking for my opinion? Or are you just looking for me just to listen?" So then I know what kind of response they're expecting from me, and that will allow that conversation to be a lot more productive than me forcing advice on someone who wasn't looking for advice in the first place. So men and women are different. And the best example I've ever been given that will help us explain in a nutshell why a lot of times men and women are different when it comes to communication is thinking back to the caveman days. Men were the hunters. They were the ones who went out and stalked prey. And if they were loud and if they talked, they'd scare the prey away. So they tended to be more quiet and to talk less. Women, on the other hand, tended to be the gatherers. They'd be going out and gathering fruits, berries, nuts, things of that sort. And they wanted to scare predators away. And how do you scare predators away? You make noise, which is why women tend to be more talkative. Now again, not a hard and fast rule. It's just most women tend to be more talkative than most men. But even more so, I think what's more important is what men tend to talk about is different than what women tend to talk about. So women, when talking about the date they went on last night, are more likely to talk about the emotions that were going on throughout the date or the responses that we were getting throughout the date. Men, on the other hand, are more likely to talk about what actually physically happened on the date. Now, I'm not saying physically as in sexual, even though that is sometimes what they talk about, more just what they did, where they went, what they ate, what they saw. And women are more likely to talk about the emotions behind or the energy or chemistry behind the date. Because of whatever you want to believe, nature or nurture, it's what men and women are different and they do communicate differently. So we're going to investigate this idea of men and women and what they value as different or what they do as different as we go into the Project 1. So when we meet on the 26th, we're going to start class with a very, very short little game I have set up. And then after that, we're going to leap right into the first project. I will have a handout for you. It is identical to the handout that's posted on D2L already. And you will get into groups. I'm thinking 2 to 3 people in a group. And you will have the first half of class to craft the game. It's going to be a board game that's going to highlight the differences between what men focus on or what women focus on, or how men communicate versus how women communicate. And you're going to create a board game that helps exemplify these ideas or bring these ideas to life in a fun and interesting way. Then the second half of class will have us getting back together, presenting these games to your fellow classmates and actually taking part in and doing these games. So I will have different crafts available to you, but if you have brilliant ideas of things you want to do and you want to bring in games on your own, go for it. Bring it in. I'd rather have you bring in something that you can't use than wish you had brought in something that you no longer have available to you. But with that being said, we will have some printing services available. I will have some poster boards and some markers available. I will have tons of note cards available. I will have a smorgasbord of things that you will have at your disposal. So it's up to you and your group to figure out what you want to work on. So the groups will be assigned on Saturday when we meet. So I will see you all then, and I'm looking forward to it. If you have any questions or concerns, make sure that you email me, and I will see you all on the 26th.